How's it going, everyone? I'm back. Let's put the volume down. Actually, let's say goodbye to Eurobeat and let's say hello to the GBWC finalists. Welcome back, Choom. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now, what I'd like to discuss now is GBWC 12. They do it like the Super Bowl, where it's like, it's Super Bowl 29. This is now the 12th edition of the GBWC, the Gundam World Builders Cup or Championship. I forget what it stands for. And let me get a drink of water, because we're going to be doing more yapping, more chatting, guys. And yeah, so it took a while for all the respective countries to finally get the results. And just yesterday, the US champion was announced, so we will definitely get into that. And there was a little bit of a, I don't want to say a controversy, but there was a little bit of a kerfuffle, shall we say, regarding how that all played out and the US results, which again we'll kind of get to. But I thought it might be cool if we could look at all the sort of respective regional champions. There was a total of 15 countries involved, including Canada, the US, Thailand, China, Japan, South Korea. The list goes on. And each of them had their qualifying events. And over the last few weeks, last few months, the results have come out. And now we are in a point where we can look at every single one, and we can take a look at the champions from each country who are now going to go on to compete in Japan for the World Finals. So it's very exciting. It's a very exciting time, and for anyone that wonders, like, why is Ippo so interested in this? I have been kind of getting into competitive gunpla and building in general for the last little while, but I also was doing competitive stuff when I was a teenager, and I've, within the last few years, kind of gotten back into it. But I would liken it a lot to like a sport in a lot of ways. When you think about like the average person that likes to go to the YMCA and play basketball, most people playing basketball don't aspire to compete at the Olympics or the NBA. They just like to play basketball. And the same thing can be said of this hobby. People like to build models, and they appreciate like when a model is built at the highest level. So I kind of see it like that. I like to be involved in this sort of thing, but I don't really think that I'm going to like be a world champion. Do you know what I mean? It's just fun to be a part of it. I like to sit in my room and create mediocre sketches for sport. Steph, you're a fantastic artist. I will hear none of this. None of this. Aspire to be a Harlem Globetrotter. Listen, if I could be the Harlem Globetrotter of Gunpla, I'll take it. Or Nardwar. Those are the two things. But let's take a look at the decisive moment from Magicky80. And this is the Australia champion. And this is actually one of the ones that I think is going to place. I don't know if it's necessarily going to win, but I would really, my own personal feeling is that I think this is really strong for my own kind of sensibilities, I'll say. And we'll kind of go in and see many of the other builds, and you'll probably see a common thread as we look at the other models, where they're going to be a lot more elaborate, a lot more detail, a lot of things going on, very busy. And that can be very interesting, that can be very appealing. And clearly, it's something that the judges appreciate. But for me, I like something like this, where there's a kind of clarity to the model. There's a lot of attention paid to the composition and it's not really very busy. But that being said, there's a lot of detail going on, and I only have one picture each for these models. There's more pictures available on the official GBWC website, and if you're interested, I would encourage you to take a look at those pictures because there's much more detail, including like there's a little van there, there's like a little person, a little character. There's information regarding the kinds of models that were used in building this. And even in many instances, there's like lore, a little story that goes along with it, which I thought was interesting too. But I say all that to say that I think that this one here from Australia, Magic 80, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, to me is one of the standouts, and I would really like to see it go far. So next slide, please. This here is Loading from Ryan Lau, and this is the Canadian champion. I've talked before, probably too much, about why I think this is a really good model and a really good example. And it's, again, for very similar reasons that I mentioned with the previous one. There's something kind of understated about this that at first blush you might kind of look at it and think it's cool, but against so many other models that you'll see, which are, again, very busy, very detailed, a lot of stuff going on. In contrast, this is very, I don't want to say simple, but it gives a very different impression. And when you look closely, and again, my apologies, I only have one picture available for each of these entries. When you look closely, there's a lot of like holographic, it's not holographic, but it gives the impression of like these holographic glowing pixels that are sort of coalescing and creating this model. And again, the backstory and everything was quite nice from this, from Ryan Lau, aka Gunpla enthusiast from Canada. Shout out to Canada, shout out to last year's winner, also a Canadian, Simon Lamb. And listen, if two Canadians go back to back as GBWC champions, that would be crazy. That would be very cool. Who knows? But moving on. This is Phobius. This is from Phobius, UC Warfare Volume 2. And this comes from the EU region as well as Middle East. So they kind of, I think it's kind of strange that they lumped in all of the EU region minus the UK, which is separate. So that includes like Spain, France, Germany, and then they lumped them all in with like all of the Middle East as well. I feel like they should have had more granularity with that. Just have every country represent their own builder, but nevertheless, this model here is an example of more of a diorama, creating much more of a narrative, giving you more of an impression of like a battle scene, which again is another route that you can go in terms of displaying and creating a model, a scene. And I think it's really cool. The painting on an individual basis and the kind of positioning of the background and the diorama, all of that is really, really well done. So yeah, very, very cool. Okay, so I can't tell you what the name of this model is, but the builder is Na Omni. Na Omni, and this is from Hong Kong. And this is probably a very good example of what I had been talking about before, models that have a lot more of an ornate, detailed look, a lot of things going on, a lot of spikes. A lot of this is made up of many, many models. It's not just one. And you can see why something like this would be very eye-catching, right? Chef's kiss. That red though. So let's see what else we have going on. And again, this is from Hong Kong. Pretty cool. This is Indonesia. Ragnarok, the Pestilence Horseman. You gotta love the names. And this is Storm's favorite, by 444 Art. And unfortunately, as I've said, I've only posted one picture for each of these. When you look up very close, you can see really nice detail in the wings. It's like a texture, and I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, a lot going on. I think that the basis of this is a nightingale, of course, extensively converted. And as a matter of fact, someone pointed out when we were looking at some of these pictures before, but I believe there's like 2 sets of nightingales in terms of at least the wings. The wings look good. An alien creature. Keenan is lurking, no problem. This is from... I think that this is from China. I didn't get to write it down. Oh, it has 3 nightingale heads, this one, which is wild. Yeah, 3 nightingale heads. Join. Yeah, so this is the over 21. We're only looking at the over 21s. There's under 20 and under 15 or 16 or something like that in some categories. But we're only going to be looking at the over 21 competitors. A little blurry here, but there's a lot going on, and unfortunately you can't see in this picture there's a giant hand. And actually we were looking at all the competitors, or rather many other entries, not just the qualifying ones, and there was a handful of models that had big hands, giant custom made hands. It's like a little theme. Siang, that was a nightingale with a Cerbine aesthetic. Ah, I gotcha. Less is more, says Bots to Beasts. Yeah, so that was from China. And this is the winner from Japan. I think that this model here is called Regeneration. But I do not have... I don't know the name of the builder, unfortunately. Hey, it's Doku. How's it going, Doku? We are just looking at the first place winners now that the American champion has been announced as of yesterday. So now we can take a look at all the winners that are going to be moving on to the final in Japan. And this is from Japan, the Japan region winner. We have a Turn X with some custom painted wings, and we were looking at this before. Doku was there as well. Very nice paint application for the wings. There was kind of like this mesh effect with the metallic wings. Pretty cool. Who won US? We are going to get to that eventually, don't you worry. Here is the Malaysia winner, Project Omega Mark II by Troy Lee. I think that this is an example where looking at it straight on doesn't give the full impression. I saw a few pictures from the side, and like, it's so long. There's these very long fuel canisters, boosters, and a lot of detail going on with the base too. We see like stairs, and I think there's people and stuff. So very cool, very cool. And again, this is from Malaysia. This is the winner from the Philippines, Arvin Caseda, the Master Grade Psycho Zaku in this orange kind of industrial color scheme. This had LEDs, It's had LEDs, and there's like this large chain. And again, this is a really good example of like a model that has a lot going on. This one picture doesn't really give you the full enchilada. Why did I say that? The full enchilada. You kind of need to look at it from its whole entire build. But a lot going on. The whole chalupa, the whole ensamada, the whole tarun, like the orange, the whole Guadalupe. So this is from Singapore. Tragedy in the Pocket by the builder Tactical Steel. And this is, again, something more my speed, shall we say. This is, like, for my own personal, like, feeling. I like the clarity of this. I like that I'm looking at the image in its entirety. And there isn't too much going on that's like, you know, your eye is kind of darting all over the place, looking at this thing, looking at that thing. It kind of has a very clear setup. And there's like a very clear kind of tension between the two models. It has a very sculptural kind of feel to it. Almost like a Renaissance painting even. So this is an example of something that I really, really like. The whole synagogue. So again, this is from Singapore. And now we are looking at Taiwan from Barney. And unfortunately, I don't know the name of this build. But this is, again, from the builder Barney from Taiwan. And I like this too. I think that I think this has a racing kind of feel to it, like a kind of I don't know. I don't know. I'm not 100% certain. On the website there is more information, but I think that this is kind of made in a way that it's not kind of hostile, like it's not meant to be something intended for war, but maybe I'm just kind of misreading things. But I do like the color scheme. I like the pose. I like the setup. It's again a great example of being very clear, and I think that counts for a lot. Again, personally for me, there's a kind of clarity to this that I appreciate, and the color schemes and everything too. So once again, this is from Taiwan. total opposite. Oh, Vatrix, it has some hazel parts like the booster shields. Okay. Didn't they say it was based on racing? Yeah, Storm. See, I can't recall if that was what I was just kind of my impression of it, or if they actually said that. I can't recall. Let's Fly Dragon by Art of Gunpla, and this is the Taiwan entry. So this is, I really like this, and I've been following this builder on Instagram. This is a really good example of something that has a very intense amount of detail, and you can really see the effort that was put into this. Like when you look at a lot of models that have a lot going on and they have a lot of details, a lot of pieces, it gives the impression like, wow, they spent a lot of time on this because there's a lot of stuff on this model. But you run the risk of kind of being too busy. But this is a great example of something where there's a lot of detail in the right places, and there's still a sense of like a narrative flow. Yes, Steph is saying this one has a story. This still has a sense of like a visual flow to it. This has a kind of story to it. So again, this is a great example of something that does have that sort of extreme amount of detail, and the dragon, of course, is built up of like who knows how many parts and pieces, right? Again, this is something that I had seen on Instagram, or rather Twitter, so I do know that this is made up of all sorts of pieces. It's wild, and to see it come together like this is really, really cool. And this is from the UK, A Cosmic Performance by Jonathan Chung. And so this is a Zaku, I forget the name of it, but the concert Zaku or something along those lines. What we're seeing here is a lot of LED work to kind of convey the sense of importance of the scene here. In some competitions, Ifrit. Oh, okay. It might be. I'm not sure. You guys tell me. But in some competitions, I know that LEDs and lights are kind of like not allowed. Now, with the GBWC, I don't think that there was anything expressly forbidding the use of LEDs or UV reactive lights. It's all fair game. But this is an example of like using that to give you the impression of like a stage and making it look really cool and exciting, and I think they pull it off. So this is again the UK competitor, the Zaku Warrior. So here is the American champion. He was just named yesterday. Welcome Home by Danzer Dragoon from the USA. And this could be a little tricky to kind of fully appreciate, but what we have here is actually a large resin vessel. This model here, and there's actually a second there's a second master grade Zaku, or rather Zagok, behind it, fully submerged in the resin to give the impression that it's underwater, and then it's emerging past the water, and you can see partially that it's like coming out through the water. There's a lot of effects and resin kind of giving the impression of the surface of the model kind of looking still wet as it's entering the dry dock zone or something like that. And I remember that the builder had mentioned that he was inspired partially by Star Wars Episode 1 with the Gungans, or rather like the that kind of like entryway portal into like the dry zone from the water. So this is an example of a model that I think is technically very impressive. We were just talking about using LEDs. And we do have some LEDs here to convey that like lighting. There's some LEDs coming through the bottom, and there could be LEDs coming through the top. And on top of that, there's the water effects that are achieved through resin. And for anyone that's worked with that stuff before, especially with this large amount of resin, it can be extremely challenging because of the heat that resin generates, which would then potentially break the model under that heat. So there's a lot of technical expertise to get this going, and I think that the photo, this is another example where the photo really helps to sell the work too, because and again, for anyone that is interested in looking at more pictures, you can take a look at the official website. There's more pictures, which I think does a better job of kind of giving you a better sense of the totality of the model, looking at it from other angles and stuff like that. But that being said, I did see some photos of this model on display at a different convention under normal convention lighting. And under normal convention lighting, it doesn't feel the same. And I don't think that's a good or bad thing. It's just something that I think is worth noting, especially when you consider that this model would, in all likelihood, have been judged primarily through photos. That's just something to keep in mind. All right, so there's only 2 more to go. This is from Vietnam, V Technology by the builder V. This one has a lot of masked off parts and a lot of water slide details. think that it has like a crazy amount of water slides, which must have took forever to do, but shout out to the builder V from Vietnam. Very easy to remember. V Technology from Vietnam. And okay, so I may have made a mistake in looking at a previous image, because I may have said that a previous work was South Korea, but I'm pretty sure that this one is from South Korea. Because when I was looking at the site, I just couldn't get the South Korean page to open up. So I had to look for the build itself, and I think I found it just on YouTube, so it's not really the best picture to kind of appreciate the work here. But I'm pretty sure that this one is from South Korea. And for as big as this is, it's kind of impressive that like it's on those separate like acrylic stands, and you have a large base with the water and some land. But my apologies, because this was the best picture that I could find. I'm sure there's some better images out there. And again, this is it. This is the last one in total. At least as far as I can tell, 16 countries. These are the 16 champions from their respective countries, and they are now all gonna go to Japan soon. I'm not sure when. It could be in February, to compete in the GBWC 12, or rather the 2024 finals. And exciting. To me, I'm pretty excited to see the results. I've been someone that's been following all of this stuff for a good little while. I've also been competing in various things, as well as the GBWC itself. I've submitted my work 2 years now, and I've only ever just made it to the website. I haven't qualified or anything like that. But like I said, I think it's fun to be a part of it, and I think it's fun. I think it's cool to, in some small way, be a part of this larger thing. And I want to get better. I want to improve. And looking and learning from what we see here is a part of that. So let's take a look at all of these again. And you guys can tell me what you think is going to win. And we'll just kind of go through these really fast. Or what do you think is your favorite? And I'll tell you what I think is at least going to place. I don't know what's going to win. But personally for me, I'll just tell you what I like. So again, this is from Korea, Vietnam, USA, the UK, Thailand. I think that this might place, to be honest. This is an example of something that I think might place, the Thailand entry. Taiwan. I like this too. Singapore. I like this one. Yeah, I really like this one. I like so that's 3 in a row that I like. This is Philippines, Malaysia, they're all super well done. Yeah, I agree. Japan, very cool. I like that one a lot. China, Indonesia, Hong Kong, EU, and Middle East. You me. Ryan Lau, Canada. I'm sorry. I'm gonna come across as a big homer. I'm gonna come across as someone that's rooting for the home team, but I really do like this, and I think this is going to place. I've spoken to Ryan just a little bit, really cool guy. But again, I'll say this: Ryan had mentioned his work and his plan very early on at the start of this year on Zach Aurelius's YouTube channel. They were discussing each their respective kind of idea for the GBWC. And Ryan was talking about this plan to have a suspended in the air RX-78, and that there would be UV reactive lights, like it's pixelated and it's coming to life. And I remember thinking that was really cool. But I had a hard time envisioning it, like from what he was telling us through the video. Now, cut to several months later when he finally posted the pictures and then submitted to the GBWC, I was floored. A lot of the Gundam builder folks on Instagram, a lot of the big heavy hitters were like all very floored with this build, and I was like, yo, I think this is a contender. I really like this. And I didn't actually realize until much later that Ryan was Canadian. I was like, oh shoot, he's Canadian. So I say all that to say that I'm not being a huge homer when I say that I think this could place, but I'm still kind of a homer. I should say EPO Canada. One day we'll see EPOs on here. I would like to improve, and maybe someday place would be great. I'll say that much. And this is the decisive moment from Magic 80 from Australia, and this is another one that I think might place. So I'll say Australia, Canada, and Thailand? Thailand. I really like Thailand as well. These are all ones that I think can place. And I think that last year with the GBWC and Simon Lamb winning, it was kind of like a shock to the system for a lot of people that were following the GBWC, because it was incredibly unconventional. It was a very unusual, unconventional winner in the sense that it was something that was almost entirely scratch built, using unusual materials, including Christmas globes and random parts and from Gunpla. It was extensively kit bashed, and to say nothing of it being hand painted and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see if in 2024, or rather the GBWC 12, if they're going to choose something that is also equally unconventional, or perhaps something that is more typically traditional, shall we say, in terms of like the past winners. When you look at the overall past winners, something that would more comfortably fall in line with the past. This is a marketing event more than anything else. That's another thing to keep in mind. It's the same can be said with Japan, or rather, the same can be said with Games Workshop and the Golden Demon. It's a marketing event. It is a painting competition, but at the end of the day, Games Workshop has the idea in mind that this is supposed to promote their miniatures, their hobby, and their games. And the same can be said about the GBWC and Bandai. They are going to look for something that is going to help promote the hobby and Gundam and Gunpla. And when you think about last year's, it's like, is it really though? I don't know. So we'll see what they do with